Hey, how you guys doing here at Net Builders again? We're gonna have a great episode today. We have Doug Lawrence in the building, and he is going to provide some great information, some valuable information. I hope you guys enjoy this interview as much as I do. And Doug, floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much for having me. So I thought what I would do is I'll tell a little bit about myself so that your listening audience can kind of get a flavor for where I'm coming from. So I'm a retired Royal Canadian Mounted Police officer. So I spent about 25 years in the police force, and obviously had a number of different experiences and stuff as a result of that. And then I retired from the force, and I started to work in provincial government and was in some leadership positions. And eventually my time in government came to a close, and I started my own company in the fall of 2009. And my company called Talent C is focused primarily on mentoring. So it's mentoring individuals at kind of all levels in organizations and on individual basis. And what I've done is I've gone through a couple of different variations of the certification of mentors, and I've now landed with an absolutely phenomenal business partner who is kind of, I call him, he's my mentor certification guru sort of person. So, and he's just absolutely fabulous that way. So we've worked together to create a certification for mentors based on competence. So not just based on your knowledge, but actually based on your ability to apply those concepts, that knowledge in an actual mentoring practical aspect. So we've moved forward with that. So as a result of that, I've gone through his certification process, and I'm a certified, I have my certificate of competence mentor and my certificate of competence journey mentor. And the journey mentor one is actually quite interesting in that it is one that is focused on mental health, mental well-being. So as a mentor, I'm kind of the easiest way to describe it is a mental health mentor. So I work with individuals that are experiencing mental health issues or challenges, and we go on a bit of a journey to help them on the path towards healing and stuff like that. So yeah, so that's kind of me in a nutshell. I'm like I said, a full-time international certified mentor, and loving every chance I get to talk to people and tell them my story.
Definitely. And you have a great story at that. So I feel like this is a question that's a little bit of an age-old question. What is the difference between a coach and a mentor?
I kind of figured you might go there. So
it's a question I get asked. It's a question I ask, and I'm like, I really don't know. So.
And to answer that truthfully is that there are so many different variations of coaching and mentoring from a definition perspective. Mm-hmm. So how I look at it, and coaches would probably challenge me on this, but a mentoring relationship is a longer term. So I have, in some cases, I'm working with a leadership team in an organization where we've been together now probably 7 or 8 years. And, we get together once a month and we talk about different things, different challenges and stuff, where a coach would shorten that time frame up, and they would, they'd probably have more definitive goals that they would be setting for their coachee, or whatever term you want to use, but they would have some definitive goals that you need to have this done by this time. The other part is that I find, from what I see, is that coaching is very much goal specific. So wanting certain things done by a certain time period is very much performance related. Not saying that mentoring can't be, but it's more about creating that environment where the mentee can learn and grow in parallel with the mentor, so they both will learn and grow from that. The idea behind is that from a mentoring relationship is that it's not so much like I'm not going into an organization to say you need to have this done by this time by this time. I go at it from a collaborative approach and saying, so what would be some of the things that we need to work on in order for us to see some of these results? The coach would probably say, you need to do this, this, and this by this, and go that way. I also find from a difference perspective is that my relationships that I have, my mentoring relationships, are more of a personal nature. So I focus on their personal growth. And I'll give you an example is that a conversation with somebody, I may get a sense or a feeling that there's some self-esteem, self-confidence issues, and I'll spend a lot of time dealing with those before I even begin to think about career development, professional development, or anything else, because I want to see you become whole as a person so that you can deal with some of the challenges you're going to face down the road.
That actually makes a lot of sense. I appreciate you explaining that difference too. That's actually a big difference, like a huge difference. So I liked an article that you guys posted. I thought it was very interesting. If the mentor and the mentee are pretty much at the same level, does it benefit to still have that person as a mentor?
Yes, without a doubt. Because, even though the reason we say they're kind of at the same level is that they go on the journey together. So the best way to do that is for me to give you the definition. So mentoring is a two-way trusted relationship where both the mentor and the mentee are going to learn and grow together on a personal and professional basis. So when I sit down and get into a mentoring relationship with somebody and we start talking about, what do you hope to take away, or what do you hope to get from this relationship and stuff like that. After every mentoring engagement or session that I have, I go through a reflective process. So I ask myself what went well, what didn't go well, and what will I do different next time. And I learn just as much as the mentee does from that time that we spend together. And that's, I think, that's fairly substantial from, a difference between coaching and mentoring, but it's from the aspect of the mentee will learn, so will the mentor, but they may learn some different things, right? That may not, what I take away from the time we spend together may be somewhat different than what my mentee may take.
Gotcha. Does the quote "still sharpen still" kind of,
Yeah,
kind of work there?
Yeah.
Okay, I like that though. That makes a lot of sense. You're constantly learning from each other. I think a lot of people don't take advantage of situations like that, especially if you're in a leadership position. It's, hey, I know everything, and you're gonna learn from me. But wait, maybe I have an idea. It doesn't matter. You're not wearing the rank that I'm wearing, so sit down and shut up.
Yeah.
I think we get that a lot.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things when I was in leadership positions, whenever my staff would come to me with a problem, they always came with a solution as well.
Mm.
And that was what we encourage. And I encourage that with mentoring is that, if you've got some challenges you're dealing with, I want you to critically think your way through them, and I'll help you do that. But I want you to come up with the solution. So, and I found with my staff in the years gone by that, they got to know that if I go to Doug's office, if I'm taking him a problem, I got to bring a solution or a couple solutions, and he'll guide me through that whole process.
That's actually, I think that's a very empowering process and concept right there. Like it really, like, just imagine you come in and one of your clients has an issue with, I don't know, I'm trying to think of something that's major to them but minor in the broad spectrum of things. But they come to you with the issue and you give them the solution that they think is right, you help them walk through it and break it down, and then that solution becomes a standard of procedure or policy implemented in the company. You know, you imagine how far they poke their chest out, like, yeah, I came up with a solution. You know, I think that's very empowering. I think that's a very great way to go about that.
Well, and the thing I always tell people is that you know what you need to do. It's locked inside you. My job as your mentor is I unlock that door and let that idea out. And you're the one that has to take ownership as the mentee. You have to take ownership of the idea and putting it into practice and what the outcomes are going to be. Because at the end of the day, I don't want you to become dependent on me. I want you to stand on your own too. I'm there for you. I'll ask you the tough questions to help you stimulate your thinking process. But at the end of the day, I want you to own whatever the outcome is. And I don't want you to become dependent on me to say, well, I don't need to try and figure this out. I'll just go ask Doug because he's always got the answers. Well, he may have all the answers, but he's going to make you or force you to start to think your way through and come up with the solutions.
Yeah, I think that's great. So you mentioned there's a lock there, you know,
Yeah.
what do you think keeps it locked in there, especially if they know the answer? Why do you think they don't act on it, you know, independently, like automatically?
But you know, a large part of that is fear of failure.
Hmm.
So they're afraid to act on anything that, you know, geez, what if I stumble and fall? And I always tell people, fail is first attempt at learning. So if you look at the three, you know, first attempt in learning. So you need to take those steps forward. And that's why it's always important that we have mentors as part of, you know, part of our journey, is that those mentors are going to help you as you go forward and deal with all these different things. They're the person that's going to say, you know, ask the question, you know, this is what this particular thing took place. What could be some different things that we could do differently that would maybe generate a different outcome?
Mm.
And you'll notice that I emphasize the word we, and that's one thing that I find that a lot of people are afraid to, what they end up doing is they say you or I or stuff like that. They don't use we and us. We and us is a much more collaborative way of dealing with an issue. And people then buy into it and feel part of whatever it is the solution's going to be, versus if you say, you know, you need to do this or you need to do that. So that's, you know, definitely a better approach.
Yeah, I definitely agree. They never feel like they're alone, you know?
Right.
You use words like that. I imagine you deal with a lot of different personalities on a daily basis. I mean, some resistant, some reluctant, some aggressive. Then you probably get an occasional people that are really receptive to everything. So my question to you is, when you wake up in the morning, what do you do to prepare your mind to go into this form of chaos that you have to deal with every day? Like, do you have any rituals or any mantras or something you just do in the morning before you get ready for all of this?
You know, I do, and I've just started doing it a lot more this last little while, but I go through a bit of a morning ritual where I pray. I have some prayers that I go through, and one of the pieces, in addition to sending love, sending love, light, and healing to a number of people that I'm connected to. I also ask for divine guidance in going through. These are some of the things that I think that I'm going to be dealing with, and I'm asking for divine guidance and perhaps intervention, you know, in helping prepare me for having a conversation with somebody, you know, like even preparing for our conversation today. It formed a part of my prayers this morning, was to be able to say, you know, to help me be able to bring value to the show and all of those sorts of things, right?
And I think that prayer worked because you're doing a great job.
Well, thank you.
So, what is one of the most like your business sounds like what you do is very fulfilling for the people that you help, but also to you, like what's one of your like most fulfilling moments, like when like like your kid graduating high school and just being able to say, oh man, yes, like what's one of your most fulfilling moments in your work, you know?
And you go through, you do like, I do a lot of this, and like you said, it would be hard to sort of take that step back and go like, how much have you actually done? But the one, I had this one person that I'd been mentoring for a period of time, and she was getting married, and um, I went and spoke to her at her wedding and thanked her very much. And she said that her husband, her new husband, and her could not have imagined having the wedding without me being there.
That's beautiful.
And she said, you've done so much to help us as a couple. You've done so much to help me as a person, as a human being, that um, I just couldn't imagine having the wedding without you here. It wouldn't happen.
Wow, I imagine you cannot put a price on that, Phil. And just, yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. Like, and out of all the times that you do stuff to help people, and you don't know if you were of any value or anything like that, this just kind of wrapped it all up in a nice little box with a nice little bow on tied on top, right? And you just went, okay, I can still do this and I can keep going. And just that one time, little accolade is all that it takes to just keep you moving forward.
Definitely. Definitely. That's beautiful. That was a beautiful sentiment. But I can only imagine all the value that you provided in her life for her to be able to say something like that. You know what I mean? Because women are really particular about their weddings, and they have a term for it. I think it's bridezillas. But
Yep.
for her to say that, you had to provide a huge amount of value to her life. So kudos to you for that.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So leaders. I spent 10 years in the Army, and I was fortunate enough to be able to be a leader in the Army. And I wasn't aware so much of myself back then as I am now. But now I can pick myself apart from how I was back then and see all of my flaws and point them out like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that was me. So, so my question, that I say that to lead to my question: what are the biggest flaws that you see in leaders, especially, leaders in business, leaders in life? What is one of the biggest flaws that you see that you're always correcting and always reminding them about or making them aware of?
One of the main ones is fear of delegation.
Oh, wow.
So people, and it's a combination of things. Number one, it's, some people are the sort of people that have to control everything. So it's right.
A
So
micromanager.
yeah, micromanagement is one of the main ones that I see quite often. I see where there is, and tied to the micromanagement, a lack of trust. So I don't trust you, so therefore I may as well do it myself because I know you're gonna, you're not gonna do a good job. So those ones stand out the most. It's the other part, and I'm a huge proponent of the Socratic method. So asking questions rather than telling.
Mhm.
I always say that for the traditional style of mentoring, and the same as leadership, is it's that gray-haired old sage on top of the mountain doling out their wisdom, but it's being done by, I've done it this way for 30 years, so just do it this way. Instead of saying, let's sit down and have a conversation. What are some of the options that we could put into practice that will generate some different outcomes that might be better? I worked with a leader. I actually was meeting with this one leader in his office, and an employee came, knocked on the door and said, boss, this happened in the work out on the floor again. And geez, I can't remember what you told me to do to fix it. The boss says, well, you do A, B, C, and D. And so the employee takes off and goes back and, fixes the problem and stuff. My question to the boss was, how often does that happen? And he said, oh, quite regularly. I said, what would happen if you were to bring the employee in, sit them down at this table and start to ask them some questions? What could be some of the options that you could try that might alleviate that problem? What did we learn from the last time that we implemented a solution? What were the things we learned that we might be able to put into practice so going forward? So it was getting them to understand that the leadership function is one about helping the development or helping your employees develop. And you can't get them to develop, certainly not to the extent that they should, if you're constantly telling them how to do things. You need to engage them in the critical thinking process. You need to engage them in problem solving. You need to give them the chance. You need to empower them to be able to make decisions and move forward. And if you don't, then you're going to have a bunch of robots working for you. Because I've been there. I've been there where I was chastised severely by my boss because I took the initiative to put something into practice that eventually he put into practice a couple of weeks later, but chastised me in such a negative, in a bullying type of a function that I shut down. And I said, great, here's what we're going to do going forward is you tell me what you want me to do, when you want me to do it, and how often you want me to do it, and I'll do that. Other than that, I'm not going to engage.
Yeah, and that's a horrible situation. It stunts the growth. I actually, if you think about it, I mean, their main priority is the development of the company, but that completely destroys the development of the company at any way, especially and I think a lot of leaders take for granted the brain power of even the lowest level in the company. These guys have ideas. They're out there in the field every day. So if anyone has better eyes and better knowledge of the situation, it's them.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think that's just a terrible way of thinking. And I mean, what if that leader wasn't there that day when that happened and they couldn't walk him through A through D?
Yeah. Or do they pick up the phone and call him if he's off at home or on a holiday? I had that happen to me too. And, I'd take off on a holiday, be going to leave town, and I might be 15 minutes out of town and my phone would ring and it would be, how do we do this? When you're not here, how do we do this? So that's, for me, that was a rude awakening that I needed to delegate even more. I was a delegator, but I needed to delegate even more because my staff were becoming too codependent on me. I don't need to learn this because Doug will always be here. Well, no, he won't be.
That's very true. And I to add to that, I said it earlier about how now I'm able to pick apart all of my flaws as a leader. One of my biggest ones was the delegation, but I think my main reason why is and it's horribly selfish now for me to even say it out loud, but I'm gonna say it. It's actually embarrassing, but the more that I teach my subordinates, the less that I am needed. So, once my job can be done by somebody else, then what use is there for me?
Yeah.
And that's a horrible thought, and it was very, very selfish. I know that for a fact, but it feels kind of good to get it off my chest now. Now that I never actually said it out loud, but yeah, but
how you can look at that is, and I work for an organization that would absolutely just go ballistic when one of their good employees would go and take a job someplace else. And I said, what you need to do is you need to think of this from a different perspective, is that you've had this employee now working for you for a year. And over that course of that year, you've given them additional skills and abilities to make them much more marketable in the workforce. So you've helped set them up for greater successes. And that's something you, as you know, as a leader in the company, but also the company itself, that's something you need to be proud of, is that look at what we've created here. We've given, we've invested in this employee. And yeah, I know it's a tough pill to swallow when they walk out the door and go someplace else. But at the end of the day, you help prepare them for that. And as a result of that, they've moved on to greater challenges. And who knows, they may be coming back someday to be your boss.
Mm. Oh, yeah, that would be a sight right there. I mean, that's just something to be proud of. Look, look what I did. I helped this guy out or gal out, yeah, definitely. How do you think, how do you, what do you think about retention? Like in that situation there, like, would you ever encourage the boss to, try to retain that person?
Shouldn't have to try, it should almost be a given. And part of the reason is that if you create a work environment that people wake up in the morning and can't wait to get in the door to get started work, if you can't create that, then you're going to have an issue with retention.
Hmm. That makes
So
sense.
one of the things that I did some work with an organization, gosh, a number of years ago now, and we implemented a mentoring culture in the organization. And one of the things that they would advertise when they were posting for a new position was, we support and maintain a mentoring culture. And so that attracted a completely different type of individual, because we also built into the interview guide, into the questions that they would ask at the interview. I think there was 4 different questions that were related to mentoring. Can you describe what mentoring means to you? And if you were going to work in an organization that claimed it had mentoring as part of it, what would that mean to you? And how would you change that, if anything? And so we asked, a number of questions, but they were always getting some top quality people, because they would ask the question, why did you apply on this position? Well, because you got a mentoring culture, and that's important to me.
Wow. Wow. It makes a
There,
huge difference.
there was a study that was done by MSNBC that said, they did a study of grad students, I think it was, but 85% of those interviewed said they wanted to be mentored, not managed.
Mm. Mm. That's actually a really powerful statement there.
Yep.
That's very powerful, because a lot of managers don't understand the difference between mentoring and managing. I think a lot of them are, and that could probably come from their past manager or manager before then, do this, do that now. And, I unfortunately, that is a mindset that is inherited. It's just passed down and inherited. And it's great that you do something. It's great that you're doing something to break that, because I think that's amazing. And I know I kept you way over time here. We were just having a great conversation. I'm sorry, I just checked the clock.
No, I'm fine. I'm fine.
Well, can you let the viewers know where they can find you at?
Yeah, I certainly can. They can find me on LinkedIn. So just search on Doug Lawrence and you'll find me on LinkedIn. You can also check out my website at www.talentc.ca. And the other website, that if you're interested in mentor certification, it is www.internationalmentoringcommunity, and that's all one word, .com. And then finally, I am open as a door is to people sending me a message by email, and my email is doug.lawrence, LAWRENCE, at talentc, so the word talent with the letter C on the end, .ca. And I'd be more than delighted to answer any additional questions you may have. Or, if you're wanting to explore, gee, what would this mentoring thing look like for me? We can certainly take a look at that.
Outstanding. I will definitely have all that information in the description under the video, you guys. So definitely check that out. And thank you so much for joining us today, Doug. like as promised, you did, well, as expected, you did provide tons of value. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure all of the viewers do as well.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, and it's been a great conversation. I absolutely enjoyed myself.
Same here. All
Great.
right. See you later, Doug, and see
Take care.
you net builders later as well. Till next time.